most video games, the concept of ending a level will usually involve fighting some kind of boss or large enemy. It's a way of saying, you've endured the entire level so far, so let's see if you can complete this journey by defeating the final challenge. Throughout the numerous entries in the Blasphemous series, there's been a variety of interesting boss fights. Some where the boss is just designed really well, or some where the fight itself has something interesting to offer. So on today's list, we are going to take a look at some of those interesting, huge, and memorable boss fights in this list of the top 10 bosses in the Blasphemous series. Number 10. Kicking off this list is a boss from the original Blasphemous game on NES. This boss here, the Mother Brain, is memorable for being the first boss in the game, and thus the first boss ever in the Blasphemous series. Try to remember playing this game as a kid. You enter the room, an alarm sounds, the screen turns black, and here we go. First boss fight of the game. The Mother Brain boss fight itself isn't too hard once you know what to do. Just dodge little brains rotating around the outside and shoot the main large brain in the center. Tribute to this boss was also paid in future games that reused her. Blasphemous Zero, as well as Blasphemous Enemy Below, for example, used a similar boss fight. Number 9. Now, if you've seen our previous videos, you know that Blasphemous Boy is not a true Blasphemous game, but rather a Bomberman spin-off. Nonetheless, we do consider it in the Blasphemous series thanks to the title of the game. So for a Bomberman style game where all you can basically do is lay bombs or shoot your pea shooter, you had to think of some creative way to fight the bosses. The boss here in stage 3-4 is one of those creative ideas. The boss initially gave us some problems figuring out how to defeat him. He's placed behind some barrier so you can't actually get to him. The whole time he's trying to grab you with his tongue for some breakfast. You can shoot him with your standard gun, doesn't really seem to do much damage. You can also try directional bombs to travel up the screen. They also don't seem to do much damage. Well, disclaimer, apparently you can kill him this way, but that's no fun. What the game intended for you to do was to drop the bomb in the correct spot so that his tongue will pick it up. Then he'll eat the bomb and explode him from the inside. Careful though, because if you get too close to the tongue, he'll eat you up instead. Number 8. With a lot of games in this series being remakes, it's nice to see when they come up with a new boss idea. Blasphemous Overdrive on the Wii was another one of these said remakes with similar bosses to the original. Stage 7 though had a cool idea not yet seen in this series. At the start of the fight, you'll be fighting what appears to be a shadow of yourself, a Dark Jason per se. A simple one-on-one fight, but the fight soon gets more hectic and difficult as it progresses. After you beat the one-on-one fight, multiple Dark Jasons start to fill the screen. Finally, the last section of the boss fight is against this huge Dark Jason guy. This guy isn't playing around. He's got some serious firepower that covers up a lot of the screen and is hard to dodge. This is an interesting gauntlet-style boss fight though. Number 7. The success of Blasphemous Zero on the Switch, the sequel Blasphemous 2 was soon released. This game brought many new ideas and bosses to the series. The next boss on this list is found in the hidden stage on planet Omega. The boss fight starts out as one big creature and divides into 2, and then 2 more each for a total of 4. It can get a little hectic with all the stuff bouncing around on the screen. You actually have to fight this boss twice though. The first time is Eve, and the objective is to use your time freeze to slow the boss down, just enough where you can push these blocks on top of it. And then later in the level, you come back for some revenge and just light him up while in Sophia. Number 6. I remember first seeing the marketing for Blasphemous Zero. After like 7 years, I thought the series was dead, but then the Blasphemous Zero was announced. With the game being a remake, most of the bosses are recycled or reimagined from the first game. But what caught my eyes during the preview was the fight of a boss we haven't seen yet. This boss was Central Gear. Each level has a stage boss you must defeat to progress the story, as well as 2 optional bosses that drop power-ups or some other optional gear to make the game easier. Nesting deep in Stage 3, Central Gear is the stage boss, not an optional one. This boss gives you the ability to hover. Well, technically you get the hover right before you fight him, but you can't just grab the hover and bail. You have to complete the fight. The bright-colored laser and sprite graphics of this boss, as well as the rest of the game, are nice to look at while fighting the boss. The platforms in the middle appear and disappear throughout the fight. The only weak spot on Central Gear is in the eye hidden in the middle of the gear. Simply dodge all his attacks and shoot the eye enough times, and you should have this guy defeated with no problem. Number 5. Blastmaster 2 is up for debate whether it's a bad game or a good sequel to the original Blastmaster on NES. One thing I think people can agree on is that the adjacent sections are kind of a letdown. The only purpose they serve is to fight a boss and then leave and get back into the car. The bosses themselves are also not very interesting. So, why am I talking so bad if it's on a top 10 list? Well, despite the bosses being underwhelming for the most part, when you finally get to the last level, Stage 8, the boss here is surprisingly different. From the lame bosses we've seen through the entire game so far, this one was kind of a surprise. It's still a 2D side-scrolling section like the rest of the boss fights with Jason, but the sprite is huge and looks like some badass Viking or something. The fight takes place over 3 different phases. The first phase, he stomps on the ground and shoots out this ring of fire. In phase 2, he stomps some more, but this time the fireballs are homing, so be careful. Finally, in phase 3, we'll shoot out a large fireball on either side of him. He will either be on top of the platforms or on the bottom level, so you just need to be aware of where he is. The boss fight itself is not that difficult, but it is a cool ending to a mediocre game. Number 4. Coming in at number 4 spot is a boss called Dig Rawler, the Dimensional Glutton. This boss literally eats planets. The boss is huge, takes up almost the entire screen. The boss fight seems a little overwhelming at first, as Dig Rawler has a lot going on with multiple attacks. He first sends out these 2 spike balls which you need to kill or they will pester you the entire fight. Then each of his 6 eyes will shoot you, but luckily, if you're quick enough, you can counter this attack and avoid the eyes from shooting altogether. Finally, when he gets desperate, he'll charge up and shoot this huge stream of some liquid or something from his mouth. This can be dodged by activating these pillars here and hiding behind them. To kill the boss, you just need to stay alive long enough and hit him while his mouth is open. Much like the boss Capel we mentioned earlier, this is another boss you'll encounter later in the game as Eve. The fight with Eve is much more different, being that she has no real attacks. When you're fighting him as Eve, the trick is to have her push the spike enemies he summons back into his own mouth to cause damage. Once you realize this is the way to defeat him, Dig Rawler will be dead in no time. For the second time. Number 3. Blasphemous Overdrive, as we mentioned earlier, was another remake, reimagining of the original NES game. The 6th level is similar to NES game, as it is an ice-themed level as well. The boss on the NES game of this level was another crab, but this time just ice. So we finally reached the boss of this stage in Overdrive, and we were surprised to find this huge machine rather than another crab-type boss. This is a newly created boss fight just for this game, and the fight feels very different from most boss fights in the series. It has a bullet hell shooter feel to it, with how many bullets are on the screen that need to be dodged. The pink bullets, as established throughout the game, are undodgeable, but you can shoot through these yellow ones to have a safe path through the bullet pattern. The boss also shoots out a barrage of ice bullets that cover most of the screen. Better to just get out of the way of these rather than try and weave yourself between them. Not to mention he's dropping ice blocks from the ceiling the whole entire time and randomly charging at you. Oh, so how do you defeat the boss? Well, you have to shoot out his legs long enough for him to collapse and expose the power supply on top. Shoot this thing before he gets back up. Repeat this a few more times and you'll receive the tire kit to help you grip better on the ice. Number 2. Blastmaster Zero was a remake of the original Blastmaster on NES. The levels all follow the game pretty closely with some new bosses thrown in and some new mechanics and layouts of the level. So as you make it to the final level, Area 8, we see a familiar boss, the Underworld Lord. This is the same boss as the actual final boss in the NES game. He has the same electric whip and persistently follows you around like on the NES game. But this boss isn't the one on the list. To our surprise, this is not the final boss of Area 8. Once you beat the Underworld Lord, there's still one more fight to end this, the multi-dimensional Overlord. This boss switches between 4 different colors, each with a unique attack. The orange one is the most difficult. The boss emits some explosion covering an area around him, so don't be close to him on this color or you're going to lose a lot of health. The red color sends out these drills that rise up from the ground. Simply keep moving and you're going to outrun these. With the blue color, blobs will appear around the room, and if you don't kill them fast enough, they'll explode and shots will cover the room. Also, if you manage to kill these, they do drop items such as maybe health or a gun power up. Finally, the green color, which is the most annoying in my opinion. The boss stands in the middle of the room and creates these huge green orbs in the 4 corners of the room. They rotate around the room and take up so much space it's kind of difficult to dodge. Stay alive long enough and you might just defeat this final boss. Oh, and all that just for the bad ending. Yep, this game has a secret Area 9 if you manage to collect every item in the game. Just wait till the true final boss fight. Good luck with that. Number 1. The number 1 spot on this list is once again going to a boss from Blasphemous Zero 2. This is a boss you might have missed if you didn't play the game to its entirety. This boss is at the end of the bonus stage Omega, and his name is Drolrevo. In case you didn't notice, Drolrevo is Overlord spelled backwards. I know, clever. But to even get to play this stage, you must collect every item in the game, including the 3 emblems you get from helping out your friends you met along the way. You're fighting this boss as Eve, and it's very confusing as to what they want you to do exactly. Notice poor Jason and Sophia are just sitting there turned to stone and helpless. So there's these laser eyes that shoot down on you from the top of the screen, which you can attack, so just do your best to dodge them. Next, there's these flying enemies that come in from the sides of the screen, but you can't shoot them either. The boss itself appears to have no spot you can actually attack either, so what are you supposed to do? Well, spoiler alert. You have to use the new Waterbind special attack that you get with this version of Sophia. You can essentially encapsulate these guys with a Waterbind, and then you dash through them and it sends them straight into the boss's eye to do damage. After fighting him for quite some time, all your friends you've helped along the way come to your aid. Soon the camera goes to this first-person view as Eve inside the car. She builds up the strength to charge the Excel Blast and defeat the boss. Jason is finally freed from being encased in stone, but he's only awakened to fight yet another boss fight. This is the true final boss of the game, Drolrevo Mastro. The boss is very similar to the multi-dimensional Overlord we just mentioned in the number 2 spot. He uses 4 colors and has different attacks based on each of these colors as well. There's also now a 5th color, purple. The boss fight here is very hectic and there's a lot of stuff on the screen. He keeps switching throughout the colors and just throwing a ton of crap at you. Luckily, he expends so much energy that he needs a break and turns gray briefly and just stands there. At this point, unleash whatever firepower you can on him. The boss fight is kinda rough, but if you manage to defeat Drolrevo Mastro, then you completed the game, helped Eve get back to her home planet, and receive the true best ending to the game. Congrats. Thanks for watching this countdown. If you want to see the game from number 1 spot, click up here in the top right. If you want to see all the games in the series, click down here in the bottom right on this playlist. Thanks for watching and have a good one.